and release. And then we can release them and they'll go and eat their dinner. This video contains an ad for Monvalea, but more on that later. Many of you may or may not know that before creating YouTube videos and podcasts, I was a professional dog trainer. I used to own my own dog training business called Positive Pup Dog Training, where my mission was to teach people how to teach their dogs. During my time of dog training, I got to go into a lot of different people's homes and see some of the common shortcomings with how people were training their own dogs and how people were setting up behaviors within homes. In today's video, I'm going to bring you some of the most common practices, tips, and tricks that I ended up teaching my clients during those sessions of dog training, such as some of the basic commands, some of the basic behaviors, and then a bunch of tips and tricks for how you can better communicate, build trust, and train your own dog within your own home. I hope you find today's video entertaining as well as informative. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to give a like, subscription, and a comment down below, and I'll be happy to answer. But for now, let's hop into some training. Okay, to start off these lessons in dog training, let me start with some of the high-level principles that I use to help facilitate the methodology I use with myself and clients for training dogs. So here are the four main principles. 1, reward over punishment. 2, control over correction. 3, communication over command. And 4, patience over pushing. Let me take a moment to expand on each of these principles and give a bit of an example of what that means in practice. Let's start with reward over punishment. Essentially, this refers to how we're going to reward and train the behaviors that we want out of our dogs. Science and studies have been showing in both human and dog and animal behavior that rewarding positive behaviors is going to be more effective than punishing the behaviors we don't want. Now, both rewarding and punishing does work to help correct and create behaviors, but rewarding is going to be stronger than a punishment. Also, rewarding behaviors you want is a great way to build trust in a relationship with your dog. You can accomplish all of the same things and more if you're only rewarding your pets rather than punishing them. So while there are occasional times for perhaps a correction or a punishment, most of the dog training I engage with is really going to focus on rewarding the correct behaviors we want to see and then ignoring the behaviors we don't. One of the best ways to practice and illustrate reward over punishment is with potty training. When we first get pets, they don't know they're supposed to go to the bathroom outside and not on your carpet. So our job with potty training is to teach them that outside and in the grass is where they need to go and that inside is where they need to not go. One of the most common ways I see people make a mistake is with punishing the potties inside. We might leave the house and come back to a pile of poop or pee on the carpet, and what a lot of people will do is think that they can shove their dog's nose in that or show them where they pottied and give them a spanking, and that's going to teach them not to potty on the ground. Now, unfortunately, this has been proven to be wrong. When it comes to teaching and communicating with dogs, there has to be a very quick action to reward or action to punishment timing. So when you're rubbing a dog's face in their urine or their poop several hours or even a few minutes after it happened, dogs' brains aren't quite smart enough to make the connection that them pottying led to the urine or poop being on the floor, which led to them getting punished. So that type of training just doesn't really connect well. Now, I will say, if you do catch your dog in the act, they are currently going to the bathroom on your floor, that is a time where you can correct them, tell them no, stop, pick them up, move them, try to get them outside, and that will teach them. But the best way to potty train is using rewards and positive reinforcement. What we want to do is find treats that they like, and whenever they do go outside, they do go in the grass, they go where we want them to, we give them an appropriate reward for that. If you're giving them treats and rewards every time they go to the bathroom outside, how quickly they learn to start holding it in inside because they want to get that treat. They want that positive enforcement. So whether you have a puppy, a dog that's struggling with potty training, or even an older dog, don't forget to reward them when they do the things you want them to do, even if it's as simple and expected as going to the bathroom outside. But high level, we want to focus on rewarding our dogs for the behaviors that we want and want to encourage, rather than focusing on punishing our dogs when they make a mistake. The second principle is control over correction. This is essentially meaning we want to control our dog and our pet's environment more so that they don't engage in poor behaviors rather than correcting them when they do inevitably do something that's wrong. There's a ton of different examples about using control over correction, but one of the best and ones that I use is the example of chewing on shoes. So lots of people, myself included, will sometimes leave our shoes out and about. The thing is, especially for an untrained puppy or a new dog, is they don't know the difference between what a chew toy is and what a shoe is. It's really easy for us to get mad at and frustrated with our dogs when they find one of our shoes and start chewing on it. But chewing on things is a completely natural behavior for dogs and actually something that they need to do to develop properly. So our job is not to get mad at them and spank them and punish them when they chew on our shoes. Our job is to control the environment. We need to make sure that our shoes are not in a place where they're going to get chewed on. So instead of punishing, what we're going to do is take our shoes and put them up so that our dogs do not have the opportunity to chew on those shoes. This is also important because dogs will learn behaviors through repetition. So if you always have your shoes put up, they will never build the habit of chewing on shoes in the first place. So it's all about controlling the environment and preventing those unwanted behaviors from occurring rather than correcting them when they inevitably do make a mistake. We want to control the dog's environment more so than correct them and punish them for making an error. The third principle is communication over command. People might have the idea that they're going to command their dog to do all the things that they want. They're going to use aggression, intimidation, raise voices to boss and command your dog around. Lots of the time, this can have downstream consequences such as lack of trust or even fear of the owner. What we're going to focus on is communication. We want to build communication with ourselves and our pet. So we can ask them to do things that we want them to do, but importantly, they can communicate back to us. And this whole time, that communication pathway gets stronger between you and your pet, and it builds trust, it builds a relationship, and is even more effective than commanding your dog around. So let me use this as an example of how I build communication with my dogs by asking them to do something before I give them what they want. What my dogs want is to go outside. You can see they're riled up at the door. And so what I'm gonna do is ask them to do something for me. And what I'm gonna ask them to do is listen to me and sit. So everybody, come here. Sit. Good girl, good boy. Now they've listened to me. We've built this communication. I know that they want to get outside. They know that in order for them to do that, they have to listen to me and show me that communication and respect back. And now that they're doing that, I can give them what they want, which is going outside. Ollie, maybe Ollie didn't want to go outside, but Kaya sure did. That's an example of how we can ask, we can communicate with our dogs. We don't have to just command them, which starts to build up fear and other bad habits. Last but not least, patience over pushing. This is something that's really hard for many dog owners, myself included, but it is very important to stay patient when you're training your dogs rather than pushing them to learn something quickly. If we're patient, we're able to sit back and reward the behaviors we want and let some of those failures or those corrections kind of slip by. If we're trying to push too much onto our dogs at once, it can be frustrating for the dogs, it can be frustrating for ourselves, and it can lead to just poor or improper training. Now that we've discussed some of the high-level principles of dog training and some of the situations in which you can apply those principles, I want to talk about some best practices and some tips and tricks that you can use to help begin training your dog a little bit better. The first thing you need to do with dog training is find the reward. We already discussed the importance of rewarding your dog over punishing, controlling the environment over correcting. So what we need to make sure we can do is appropriately reward our dog's behavior when they're doing the things we want them to do. Luckily, most dogs are going to be moderately to very treat-oriented. So for a lot of dogs, treats that they can eat are actually going to be really effective as a reward. One thing I want to call out is that these rewards are like currency, and not all currency and treats are created equal. So we might have these little small dog training nubs. Our dogs definitely appreciate these little guys, but they're not super motivating. Next, we might have some bigger or medium tier rewards that are bigger cookies, a little bit tastier, a little bit nicer, that are getting and are motivating our dogs just a little bit more. And then finally, you might have the top tier treat. This is just some lunch meat, but this can be cooked chicken or little pieces of hot dog or little unsalted lunch meats. And these really will get most dogs' attention. And this type of reward is going to be so much more motivating and higher value to your dogs than these other little treats. So if your dogs do like treats, which most dogs do like treats, keep in mind that not all treats are created equal. And if you're trying to train some behavior quick, you might want to use some really high value treats to get their attention, keep their attention, and make sure they're being rewarded for their efforts. But of course, there are so many more types of rewards. We also have praise and attention. Kaya, down. Good girl, very good. Bean spin, good boy. So being able to say, good girl, good boy, give them pets, acknowledgement to let them know that was something we liked, some dogs will respond really highly to that and might even prefer getting rewarded with pets and attention over treats. Another type of reward is going to be play. So my dogs aren't really motivated by play that much, but some dogs will love fetch or love chewing on a toy or playing with a toy. And so you can use that passion, that drive for these toys to use that as a reward. For example, if Ollie really liked tugging, I could tell him to sit. And then I could offer him a tug and tug on him as a reward. Or if Kaya really liked to fetch, I could have her sit. I could have down, and then I could toss a ball and have her go and get the ball and play fetch as the reward. Good girl. So there's a lot of different types of rewards, but your responsibility is to figure out what reward works best for your dogs. And sometimes it can be really difficult and it takes time. And sometimes your dogs will have various seasons and changes in how they like to be rewarded. But that's going to be the best way you can begin to communicate and train your dogs, is to find out the reward that works for them. The next tip I have for you regards control and rewards, and it is to set your environment up for success. So I already mentioned that if you don't want your dogs to chew on your shoes, make sure they don't have access to your shoes. But importantly, we want to be able to reward our dogs when they're doing the right thing. So once you've figured out the rewards that work for your dogs, whether that's play or oftentimes treats or chews, try to have these rewards readily available for you to access. So we like to keep a training bag full of treats that's set out on our counter so that when it's time for us to reward our dogs, we can do that really, really quickly. Things like jars are also really good. So we have jars of treats. And you can get small jars and set them around your house. So especially when you have a dog in training or a puppy, you can really quickly and easily grab a treat and reward the behavior you're wanting them to do. And keep in mind, sometimes you're rewarding behaviors that are as simple as chilling out. So Ollie is being a good boy on the ground. We want to be able to capture that behavior, give him a treat and say, Ollie, we love the fact that you're just laying and chilling out rather than destroying something. So reward that and keep your space ready to reward the behaviors you want. Additionally, when it comes to chewing and stuff, you can make sure that you have plenty of toys and chews that are out and around for your dogs to pick on. So if they do get bored, they do decide, hey, I feel like chewing something, there's a ton of chew-friendly options for them to pick from rather than grabbing a shoe or furniture or whatever it is. So make sure you spend some time and set your environment up for success. Let's talk about some of the basic tricks you can learn and teach that will help build that communication, but also teach dogs to practice some patience and self-control. The three main staples that I have for training dogs is going to be sit, look, and stay. At any given time, we want our dogs to be able to sit, which basically means that they need to stop moving and stay where they're at. They need to sit. 2, we need our dogs to look at us. Look us in the eyes. What that does is open up a channel for communication, and it lets both you and the dog know that you're paying attention to each other and that communication is happening or about to happen. And last but not least, we need to teach our dogs to stay. What this does is starts to teach your dogs self-control. And it means that if there's something exciting going on, but you have them sit, you have them look, and you have them stay, that they are to practice self-control, not go after whatever is happening around them, and wait and stay until you give them the okay. I'm not going to go into the specifics of how to train these, except for sit is a relatively natural behavior and it's a great starting point. I'll give a quick tip for look, and what you want to do is whenever you have your dogs able to sit, you want to hold the reward or treat up in front of your eyes so that they get used to looking at that treat in your eyes, but eventually you want to drop the treat and get rid of it. And finally, we have stay. And this is going to be a more complicated behavior to start teaching, and it's important to start very, very small. But one of my favorite times to practice all three of these is going to be for meal times. So what I do is get my dogs up onto a couch, which is my spot for them to all go and stay on. And then I have them look at me, I have them stay, and then I go and feed them. Up, up. This is their command to get up onto their couch. Ollie. Up, up. Good. That is what we call a place command, but having a spot where a dog can go and sit and stay, such as a kennel or a special cushion or a specific corner, is really important as well because it can act as their home base for listening and communicating with you. Kind of like this couch and all three of them. So now that we're on the couch, I have them all look at me, make sure I've got the eye contact here, and then I ask them to stay. And now that they're staying on this couch, what I do is go about feeding them. And in the beginning days, maybe one of them or two of them would get down off the couch. What I would do is stop the feeding process, get them back up onto the couch, and make them stay there until their bowls were down and ready to eat. You will be shockingly surprised how quick that they'll learn that they need to stay in that spot while their food is being filled in order for them to receive their dinner. So when we have their bowls on the ground, we're gonna make sure that all of them are looking up here and that they're waiting patiently, and release. And then we can release them and they'll go and eat their dinner. You may have noticed this slick bowl Ollie was eating out of. This is the 64-ounce bowl by Monvalea, who is the sponsor of today's video. Not only does this bowl look fantastic, but it's well designed and has some great features. Its double-walled stainless steel design has a great aesthetic, but also is incredibly durable and can keep their water cold on hot summer days or keep their food warm during the winter. It has a non-slide rubber ring on the bottom that keeps the bowl from sliding around, and last but not least, it's dishwasher safe for easy cleanup. But did I mention all the colors and how good it looks? You can check out the link in this video's description to find and purchase the bowl off Amazon. And thank you, Monvalea, for being the sponsor of today's video. But now, back to the action. Last but not least, it is critical to meet your dog's needs. One of the biggest needs that I see unfulfilled by most people's dogs, especially high energy breeds, is exercise. I always say a tired dog is a happy dog. So if you have a dog, you live in an apartment, if you have an energetic or a large dog, be sure that you're exercising them. Whether that's walking them, whether that's running them, whether that's playing fetch, or doing what I do and going on a long board ride with them, almost every high energy dog I meet could use quite a bit more exercise. So make sure you're doing that. It's really healthy for you, but it is almost critical for your dog. The other thing is, of course, make sure you're paying attention to their health. So making sure there's plenty of water for them to drink, making sure they have some chews to chew on to develop their teeth, make sure that they are eating good food and working on their health. Make sure you brush them if it's a breed that needs brushes, or bathe them if they're getting very dirty. And lastly, make sure that they have enough mental engagement. You can also use some toys to help you with their mental engagement. So things like Kongs filled with peanut butter, or you can even take treats and roll them up in a towel so that your dog has to figure out how to unroll them. Those types of things are really stimulating mentally. They help your dog begin to think, begin to problem solve, and will actually tire your dog out a lot more than you would imagine it. So make sure you're stimulating your dog mentally, and lots of the other problems and trainings begin to vanish as long as you're covering all the bases and taking care of all of your dog's needs. I hope you enjoyed this video about dog training. I intended this video to be an overview of the principles and then a few of the best practices and starting points that I've used in my professional dog training career to help tons of clients and their pets with their training. Now, if you liked this video, I'd really appreciate if you gave it a thumbs up or a comment and a subscription to the channel to help let me know that this was useful for you and to also help indicate that you'd like to see more content like this going forward. I didn't get into the weeds of training specifics, but definitely have the capability to do that. So if you would like to see in-depth guides, specific lessons over tricks, or how to just implement some of these practices, give me a comment down below and let me know. Otherwise, it's likely going to be a little while before I make another dog training video, as I feel like this principles and tips and tricks overview is a pretty good starting place for most people. But thank you so much for watching another episode of Real with Ryan. I appreciate it a ton. And as always, thank you for keeping it real with Ryan.